everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia and today is time for Friday Reads. It's December 2nd. The holiday season is official, so if I started too early, sorry, not sorry, but now it's not too early. So I will just carry on with my merry ways. And okay. Have you ever had Christmas fruitcake? Oh yes, I've had Christmas fruitcake. All right, so I'm not a big fan of fruitcake, and it's like a Christmas trope that people hate fruitcake or the fruitcakes are like bricks, and really they can be. I mean, I guess there's good ones, but my mother used to make one that was good, and hers was more like a fruit bread. And she made it in the little like loaf pans, and she made it a few weeks in advance, and then it like sat in the fridge or freezer, and then it was good. But she did put booze in it though, so I don't know why it had to age. But aside from that, I'm really out on the fruitcake. The last time I think that I had a fruitcake in my possession was somewhere like in the late 90s. I had a student whose family owned this fruitcake company in Texas that's kind of a big deal for fruitcake aficionados. I'll put a picture of this. I think it's called Colin Bakery or something like that. But his family owned this business. And so he gave out fruitcakes at Christmas, which was very nice of him. And I can't remember if we ate them or not, but that's what I remember, getting a fruitcake and thinking, I've always wondered about this fruitcake and now I have one. So that's where my memory cuts off. So I don't know if I ate it and blacked it out or if I gave it away or what happened. But anyway, that's my fruitcake. That's all my fruitcake material. Last week I forgot to talk about the shows, but we've been watching two shows. The one is, there's kind of a light side and a dark side. So on the light side, we've been watching Ted Lasso, and we're just like really late to that party. So now I'm trying to be really careful not to like see anything online about Ted Lasso, because we just recently got Apple Plus, so we didn't have the channel before. So we'd always wanted to see it. Now we're finally watching it, and it's really delightful. I think it took a few episodes before it really started to gel. Like at first I was like, oh, this is cute, but whatever, it's kind of funny. And then now that it's gotten several episodes in and the characters are developing, it's getting better and better. I kind of had the same experience with Schitt's Creek. Like I saw the first episode when it was kind of new, and I was like, is this the kind of the gimmick, like these rich people are stuck out in the sticks? But then I came back to it when everyone started talking about it all the time, and after I got to about 3 episodes in, then all of a sudden we loved it. And now I still love it. I like to watch old episodes and everything. Okay, so that was the light side. The dark side is a show called Black Spot that's on Netflix, and it is French. It has 2 seasons, and I have this bad feeling that we're heading towards one of those times where it doesn't really end, but I don't think Netflix continued it. So I feel like we're getting near the end of the 2nd season, and there's just millions of loose threads. But maybe I'm wrong, and it's going to suddenly magically wrap up. It's set in this little town in France that has this really exquisitely beautiful forest all around it, and the forest is a main part of the story. And it's kind of hard to explain. It's like a mystery, but it also has supernatural elements. So it's kind of like a dark police procedural with some aspects of like Twin Peaks and Stranger Things mixed in. But there's this small town with a tiny little police department with only 4 people. And then this this inspector guy who comes in to find out why they have such a high crime rate. Why are there so many people murdered and other crimes going on in this small town? And those things continue to happen, but it's also about the police chief trying to solve her own mystery of what happened to her as a teenager when she was kidnapped and held in the woods for 3 days and then got out, and she doesn't remember the details of what happened. And then it also has to do with a possible like Celtic forest god with horns out there, and there's a lot of weird things in this story. but it's one of those ones where it's just, how, if this many things really happen in a small town, why is anyone still living there? But I'm sort of compulsively watching it to the end. So that's Black Spot. All right, so on to the books. The first book I finished, I talked about a little bit last week, and that was Bliss Montage by Ling. This is her follow-up to her novel Severance, which was a kind of a pandemic dystopian novel. These short stories, I think, were originally published in various places and now collected into this collection. And I really do love this cover that's like a bag of fruit with the plastic on it, oranges. But the collection itself, there's 8 stories, and I say I have sort of a mixed connection to these stories. I think looking back on the whole collection, 4 of them were real winners for me, where I want to reread them, I want to puzzle them out. And the other 4, they weren't bad, but I was kind of like take it or leave it, because most of them are very strange. If you've read any of her writing, it's really odd, and they're kind of strange magic realism or speculative fiction. 2 of them are just realistic fiction. The ones that I like the most, if they're really weird, I want to think about the puzzle of them, or what really happened, or what does it mean. And the other ones, I'm kind of like, well, that was weird. One of the ones that was realistic was one of my favorites, and that's a story about a woman who by chance sees an old ex-lover of hers on the street, and who was abusive, and she starts to follow him. And during the course of following him home, she recollects a lot of things about what happened, and then she has an encounter with him and his new girlfriend. And that one was a really powerful story. And then out of the weird ones, my favorites were the one about the drug that makes you invisible, and then another one about a woman who has a long-running friendship with one of her professors, who reveals to her that he has a secret passageway in his office closet to a different dimension. And so those were my favorites. But overall, as a collection, it was kind of a mixed experience for me. Then I read one that's kind of a meh, and that was Marion Lane and the Deadly Rose, and it was okay. I liked the first one. The first one was kind of a fun diversion when you want a kind of a lighter mystery fantasy kind of book. It's about a detective agency in London that is secret. It is underground. You go in through a used bookstore, and the people there are recruited for their special talents. Takes place in the 1950s, although strangely enough, they don't really draw on that much in this book. Like, there's so much fun stuff about 50s culture that could be infused into the story, but because most of it takes place in the underground environs of Miss Brickett's agency, you don't get a lot of that kind of feel in the book. My problem with this book that I did mention the other day is that it is very formulaic. It's not the same plot as the first book, but it's kind of the same problems. Like, she has the same romantic tensions, Marion, and also the problem of somebody underhanded in the agency and trying to figure out who the mole is. It's kind of what happened in the first. Like, somebody within the agency is actually evil. So that was my problem with Marion Lane and the Deadly Rose. So this was just a kind of is okay. But then the week was saved by a beautiful jewel, Foster by Claire Keegan. I read Small Things Like These, which I do want to probably reread between now and Christmas, and I'm going to talk about it in my Christmas Reads video, which is frequently promised but not yet delivered, but I'm working on it. But this book was actually published in 2010, but has just now been published in this US edition. And it is a beautiful little novella. I did kind of, the ending kind of caught me unawares, because the last portion of the book is actually an excerpt from Small Things Like These. So I thought that there was like 15 more pages or something, but it wasn't. It like all of a sudden the story was over and the rest was, that excerpt. So I feel like I almost want to read it again knowing when the ending is actually about to hit. It's really a beautifully written little book. It's about a little girl. Her name is not given, her age is not given, but she's, maybe elementary school age. And she is taken by her father to spend the summer with some relatives that she didn't previously know. It sounds from the description that this would probably be her aunt and uncle. She talks about how the woman, Mrs. Kinsella, is tall like her mother and like herself. And Claire Keegan does so much with her descriptions. She manages to describe the poverty of this child's own home by simply describing the fog in a hot, steamy bathroom and looking at a freezer in the kitchen. Um, we get this picture that her home life is chaotic. It's full of many, many children. Her father's unreliable and drinks and gambles. Her mother's just, has her hands full with all these millions of babies. And they send her out to these relatives for the summer because another baby is coming. And her father suggests, he kind of seems to think that she's been sent out there to be a farmhand for them. And they're like, oh, no, she's a guest, she'll have lots to do, but we're not, she's not an indentured servant. But she spends a beautiful summer with these relatives on their farm, and they are not wealthy people, but to her, this is just a scene of grandeur. Her own bedroom. They take her shopping for clothes, and slowly, she does find out that there is a sad reality in this household. And the ending is also very exquisite and emotionally powerful. And I read an interview with Claire Keegan. I will link the whole interview in the description, but don't read the interview if you're planning to read the book or until after you read the book, because the interview is a lot about the ending of the story. But I'm going to read this one piece that doesn't have any spoilers in it because I love what Claire Keegan says about the role of a reader in this excerpt. So the question that was asked was, did you ever think about continuing the story, or did you want to leave it as just a bit ambiguous? And Claire Keegan's response is this: I don't feel it is ambiguous. I feel the story was finished, and I feel that every single story is completed by its reader, not its writer. That's the way I like to read. And everything I had to say about the circumstances of these people, I said in the number of pages I had. I also think that every story is incomplete. Most of the work in a piece of fiction is done by the reader, not the writer. It's what the writer stokes up in the reader. Each reader's private life, secret life comes out. Imagination is stoked by the text. No two people will ever read the same book. I just can't tell you how much I love that paragraph. It kind of sums up everything I think and feel about the act of reading and the interaction between the writer, the text, and the reader. I love that so much. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you agree with her description of this process, or do you feel differently about it? Because I'm gonna just read this paragraph for the rest of my life because it's just perfect. So that was Foster, and I am on the lookout. I don't care if I have to like row in a boat to Ireland to get the rest of her work, but I need all the Claire Keegan because this is one of my favorite finds as far as authors this year. All right, that's it, folks. Did you read any of these books, and what did you think? Or what did you read that was fantastic this week? Or gravely disappointing, let me have it. I love to hear from you. I hope that you have a great weekend. I am going to attempt to film the video that I would like to put out on Tuesday today and schedule it. I'm getting ready for a little out of town trip. If I don't have time to make it, then the video will probably come out next Wednesday, because I'll have to do it when I get back. But otherwise, have a great weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.